All right, everyone, good morning. It is Tuesday morning. This is the morning briefing from the Celtic Way with me, Hamish. We've got Tony. Tony, how are you this fine morning? Are you feeling flush? Are you feeling like you maybe want to spend a wee bit of cash? No?
Listen, I'm feeling good, but I'm feeling the way I've always felt about the summer. If you're talking specifically about Idah, I think I said after May he'd be a Celtic player. It was just a question of when, so I feel kind of vindicated by that process. But he's the man that the manager wanted.
Yeah.
He seemed to be the only striking target that the manager wanted. Other names were thrown in the frame, but he set his stall out on the 25th of May when he said, the player knows how I feel, the board know how I feel, take it from there. It was the ultimate shot over the bow saying, I want this guy, and what I want, I get. And it was a battle that Brendan Rodgers had to win. And I know people are saying the price is very, very high, but is it? I'm not so sure.
I thought Chris Sutton summed it up perfectly when he tweeted, this is good news for Celtic, Norwich City and Idah. I think everyone wins out of this. Kevin, how are you today?
Yeah, very well. Quite positive. Good start to the season. I've still got mixed feelings about our transfer strategy. Idah, good player to have. But let's speak frankly here. In January, when it became clear that we were weak in several positions, you're not looking at somebody like Idah to be, the big signing or one of the big signings that are required for Celtic to kick on and make progress in Europe. But he's proven his credentials with us in big games, so I'm happy to have him. I mean, what sort of money are we talking about here? I mean, Tony, I heard you talking earlier about 9 million. I was thinking six and a half.
So the fees we're talking, just to clarify, so we're talking 8.5 million initially. This is said to include guaranteed bonuses, so I don't actually know if we're going to pay all of that 8.5 up front. There's then a further 1 million in potential add-ons. They're obviously not guaranteed. And Norwich are also said to have negotiated a 15% sell-on fee for Idah. Norwich have clearly done well out of this, guys, but personally,
that's putting it mildly. I mean, let's look at this. I mean, come on, let's not mess about here. Norwich are going to get 9.5 million or thereabouts with these add-ons for a player that wasn't a first pick last season and whom some of the fans, weren't convinced by. And they've got 9.5 million for them. I'm glad. Look, I'm glad he's here, but I mean, do we think 9.5 million is?
Have Celtic really spent 9.5 million, Kevin? They get 4 for O, they get 3 for Lawal, they get 2 for Haksabanovic, they get some money for Vata, and if you're going back to March, they get 11 million for Abada. If you really want to talk about,
I know they've got the money.
So they've not really. You can look at that in any kind of different ways. You know what I mean? So
I know, but yeah.
The bottom line for me is the manager wanted him, Kevin. I'm trusting his judgment, and I'm trusting he liked what he saw. And he was the one that waxed lyrical when they brought in the third choice striker from Norwich back in January. Rodgers told us what this guy was all about and what he could do. Eyebrows were raised like, are you sure? And it turned out he was a difference maker. His 9 goals helped Celtic get a Premiership and Scottish Cup double. Can he do it in Europe? We'll find out, is the answer. We will find out. And until such times when he actually plays at that level, then you have to reserve judgment. But you have to give him the benefit of the doubt. He is the striker that the manager wanted. They put all their eggs in that basket. England, it's an inflated market. And going by that rule of thumb, if O's worth 4.2 million, then I guess Idah does an upgrade in him, and that's basically what he costs.
Yeah,
not just
I think
devil's advocate in that. You know what I mean?
I think on the fee, the big issue regarding the fee was that we didn't negotiate a purchase clause in the original loan deal in January. And I think reading between the lines, Celtic were kind of panicking at that stage because we needed someone to come in. And I think that's like one of the only loan deals in recent years we've not actually negotiated a purchase clause like we did with Bernardo and Jota and Carter Vickers, and I'm sure Moritz Jens as well. So that was the issue. We've had to probably pay a bit more than maybe some people would want. Personally, I'm not fussed at all. The manager wanted them in, and I actually think Idah, if he has a really good season, will be worth more than that to us. I think he's a guy who could be a striker for Celtic for a number of years, maybe a bit like Cameron Carter-Vickers is. I had a point brought up by one of my pals earlier saying that Carter Vickers doesn't have a great reputation in England, and that might be one of the reasons why English clubs haven't come in for Carter Vickers yet, despite him being unbelievable for us. And I wonder if Idah, there might be a similar thing with Idah, that he might be a Celtic player for years to come. I'm really excited by it. I get your point, Kevin. You're not alone. A lot of people feel we've paid over the odds. We potentially have paid over the odds. I wouldn't disagree with that, but I'm more than happy that Idah's here.
I suppose, actually, all that said, you can never accuse Celtic much in the past of paying over the odds. The reputation that we've gathered unto ourselves is that we nickel and dime every single deal. When on several occasions, and I'm as guilty of this as anybody, I've said, look, just pay the money. Don't, pay the extra couple of millions. And now I'm sitting here going, we paid a couple of million over the odds. So, yeah, take your point.
I think as well, it's a similar way we're going to feel if and when Matt O'Reilly goes. Norwich have done well out the deal. You want Celtic to feel they've done well out the deal if Matt O'Reilly is sold in this window. So I'm trying to balance it up in my head as well. But I'm delighted he's here. And like you, Hamish, I just think he looks like a player that loves playing for Celtic. He will score goals, and he scored important ones last season. And let's not forget, he got into the Champions League. So he's more or less repaid that fee, hasn't he, with the money that you're going to earn from automatic entry into the group phase of that or the league phase. Sorry, it's now called the league phase, isn't it? Champions League league phase. So that's paid for itself. And again, I go back to this is a man the manager waxed lyrical about. Nobody was enthused when he came in. It took him that game against Hibernian at Easter Road with the 2 penalties, and then Motherwell for people to say this guy's got a bit about him. And I go back to his performance that night against Kilmarnock.
Yeah, that was a big one, wasn't it?
Yeah, the one where he terrorised the defence, and the manager said, if he can do that in plastic, he can do that against MD. Yeah, the opposition ratchets up a lot of notches. But if you get a guy terrorising and running at you with a football at pace, and he's got finishing ability, he can lead the line, he can run the channels, I thought Rodgers glimpsed the future there and thought, you'll do for me. This is why I need you in my team. He's a prototype Brendan Rodgers centre forward. And again, he's not been tested at European level. We get that. But he's played a few international games and he's given some international defenders of repute a hard time. And he's shown up well in that at that level. So I'm willing him on. I want him to succeed. And I want the manager to be right. You trust the manager's judgment implicitly on this deal.
Yeah. Tony making a point that I've kind of thought, and I'll just stick it on screen. But generally talking about, we're paying, say, 9.5 million for Idah, and it is a little bit startling because Celtic don't tend to pay that money very often. But you know what you're getting with Adam Idah. And also, I'm sure if you look back last season, we would have spent 9.5 million, maybe over 3 players who were kind of fringe players and haven't gone on to do anything. So I would much rather the club spent that kind of money on a player who, there's never any guarantees with any signing, but you feel like Adam Idah will probably come in and do well for us. Listen, we'll return to this chat. First of all, Tony, we've got a wee bit of a sale on.
Yes, this is a new Celtic Way deal. We're always offering you a deal, but new season sale. So kick off the new season with a year of the Celtic Way £12 for 12 months of access, £1 a month. It's our best ever subscription deal. You've got to get hold of that, guys. So hit that button if you haven't already, and we say thank you to everybody that has. But www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Something for everybody on that website, whether it be podcasts, whether it be instant analysis from the match player ratings from Ryan, whether it be scouting reports from Stuart Ross, data and data analysis from Alan Morrison, the odd column, guest column from Kevin. There's podcasts from Kevin and myself, the grand old team, all sorts, the daily briefings, you name it, and some of my musings and scribblings as well when I write down the words, but not necessarily in the right order. Isn't that right, Kevin? As a famous man once said.
Morecambe and Wise.
Yeah, correct indeed. I'd probably be Morecambe because I'm certainly not Wise. But £12 for 12 months of access, covering your club you love with some top quality journalism. We like to think we do that. www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. So get involved in that, guys, and thank you for everybody that's done that.
Yeah, indeed. Brendan saying if Idah was French, I think it's probably harder to sell spending that money on a Norwich player than it was playing it to PSG a few years ago for Edouard. Jerry reckons Idah will score more goals than French. Eddie John saying Idah is worth the money. It's the going rate for someone from the English Championship. We're shopping in Tesco, not Aldi. Very harsh, John. I quite like Aldi. I would get a lot of bargains in Aldi. Blake, the players we have already sold this summer have covered the Idah cost, but it's still much more than ever expected to pay for Idah. Tony, what's your thoughts? You think maybe given the situation on Sunday after the game, Kyogo goes off with this persistent issue, Mikey Johnson comes on, and I think Mikey Johnson might be missing for a number of weeks. It'll be interesting to hear later in the week, just based off what happened to him. Do you think Brendan Rodgers went in and said, hang on, I could maybe do with Adam Idah?
You know me, I always talk about mid-music. Whatever's happened, there's been words exchanged, hasn't there? It's at some level between Brendan Rodgers and those at the top. Because in less than 24 hours, Celtic have lashed out £9.5 million. So you have to assume there was an open and frank discussion about the striking situation at Celtic Park. Because I think most of the supporters had palpitations on Sunday when Kyogo went down, and then when Mikey Johnson came on to replace him, and then he was taken off. As I said yesterday, that's the damning indictment of your signing policy, as Kevin talks about, with no faith in it. And you have to assume something's been said, hasn't it? Because you've gone from an initial bid of £4.5 million to another bid which wasn't accepted, to negotiating, to bang, he's here. He's going to have a medical. He'll be paraded whenever that is, and £9.5 million. So a conversation has to have taken place. What nature of that conversation, we're not sure. You have your suspicions, don't you? How it could have gone, or possibly could have gone. But I'm glad he's in the building. But I'm not one for patting the board in the back, because he can't rest on the laurels now. The manager's driven this through because it was important to him, and the optics on it. As I say, it was a battle that the manager had to win. He now has to win a battle to get a left back, a centre back, a midfielder, and a left winger in the next 17 days or 16 and a bit days, whatever's left, right? He has to win those battles too. If he can win 2 out of 4 of them, then we might feel a little bit better about ourselves. But we need a left back and a centre back as priority for me getting into the Champions League. And people will argue we'll probably need another striker as well. But, left back and a centre back are my priority positions getting into the Champions League and as we approach the end of the window. So I'm delighted that Idah's here, but he can't stop. He can't just turn around and say, right, that's it. We've delivered what the manager wanted. No, you haven't. You've delivered what the manager wanted in terms of a striker. He also wants other players in other positions, because he said that, and he wants quality additions in those roles. So let's back him further. Let's back him to the hilt and see what we can do once this competition kicks off in earnest.
Yeah. There's work still to be done, Kevin, isn't there? A number of positions there that still need to be sorted.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say, we've got it's not a long time, 17 days, but I've seen us bring in a lot of players over a few days in previous years. One of my issues here, and I think I've mentioned this before, is that you kind of realise just how little accountability there is on the custodians towards the fans, who pay a substantial amount of money every year. And we kind of do so in blind faith. I can't think of any other sector where we kind of know the money that Celtic have in the bank. We don't know what any budget ever is, right? We never know at any given point how much money has been made available to any manager. Right, this is how much money you've got for players. We don't know the process by which a player is first of all spotted, then recruited. We don't know how much weight each of the main players in our organisation have of input. What we don't know. In previous years, it was safe to assume that the manager spots a player, and if it's within the budget, we get the player. But the goalposts have shifted there. We don't know how much input Rodgers has, how much input the chief executive has, how much input Dermot Desmond has, and who else is chiefly involved in recruiting, spotting, and recommending. It's unbelievable when you look at that, for the amount of money that the fans pay and the numbers that they attend in. There is next to nothing that we are ever given, next to nothing that we know. And I know that there's confidentiality because you don't want to kind of show your hand to rivals. But come on, it's just, it's season in, season out. We see the numbers that we have in the bank, and that's it. That's it. We don't know what the budget is. We don't know what anybody's thinking. We don't know how somebody is recruited, targeted, how they got here. It's that leads to a lot of the frustration. I think a lot of the fans, if they had a little bit of knowledge of what was going on in the background, if Celtic were saying, look, we are actively tracking 3 players in the 8 to 12 million pound bracket for such and such a salary. And the reason why we're doing that is because we don't want to be paying significant sums to players that are, relatively untested, or that there might be a risk. The fans, I think, would appreciate that openness, because at the moment there's a lot of fans going, "Oh, they're doing nothing. They're they're playing brinksmanship." When we're a matter of, I think the Champions League draw gets made on the 29th of August. It's just that refusal to communicate a single iota, a single sentence of whatever strategy might exist. That a lot of that is behind the fans' frustration.
Yeah, I mean, even away from transfer stuff, I think I would personally want to hear more often from the club on things they're planning. As even away from the first team on the pitch, I would like to know more from the club and for them to really take us on this journey. But it's something probably won't change, Tony, unless there's real change at the top of the club.
Yeah, but I mean, you look at this Idah transfer alone. There's been no recruitment policy. The manager wanted him. That's the bottom line. That's all you've had to go on. But we've spoken before all summer about, so who is recruiting the players? I'm assuming it's the manager. Who is involved in that process? Who is selling the club to the would-be targets and asking them to come? And I can only assume it's the manager's all over this process because he's the biggest.
Again, you have to also assume, Tony, that if the manager really wanted them, he must really. His preference, his ideal scenario was, having targeted them, he would have liked to add them in the American tour.
Yeah, I know. So what was the hold up then? I mean, the manager said after May, the cup final, he wanted him. So, and made a point of saying that a lot of the time. So there are others involved in the process, and I think he mentioned Michael Nicholson and Chris Mackay deliberately on the American tour to say it's not just on me. These guys are involved as well, and if it goes pear-shaped and belly up, then don't be pointing the finger at me because I've been telling them. So I can only assume that's at least 3 of the main protagonists involved in all of this.
Yeah.
There might well be more people involved in that process, but those 3 for a start, Rodgers, Chris Mackay and Michael Nicholson. So I think they were the hold-up. I'm putting 2 and 2 together. I could be wide of the mark here, but you've said that there, Kevin. He did want the players in. Ideally, he said he wanted them in for the start of that tour to gel, get to know their teammates, and then hit the ground running, start the domestic season. By the time the Champions League comes in, you're well integrated with the system and ingratiated with your teammates. So you're now, as you say, that it could be a hectic 17 days, or it could be sporadic bits of, we go in and we just get something. But and people will say, that smacks of panic. I'm just hoping there's some due diligence being done here, and the thought processes have gone through. But you're not so sure, are you? That's the thing. That's what leads to the frustration. That lack of knowledge about what's actually happening in these processes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting topic of conversation that could go on and on, I guess. Just a few other things. Mark wondering, will Idah officially be announced today? What's the story? He's having a medical today?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's having a medical
so probably
today,
not today, probably tomorrow or something like that.
Yeah, so subject to passing the medical, he'll be announced either, whenever Celtic feel like it. But yeah, everything's been agreed on the financial side of it, so I guess every player has to go through the medical. And it'll be this week at some point, won't it?
Yeah. In time for Sunday, and he'll get an amazing reception at Celtic Park. Henrik McLarsson, how fit is Idah? No real pre-season to speak of. I guess he has been in pre-season. I know he's not been featuring a hell of a lot, but I think he should be fine to go back in this weekend. Not sure he'll start the game, but I think he'll probably come on as a sub. Have you seen this stuff about Renato Tapia? I think he's a former Celta Vigo player, and there's been some tweets going about of him at an airport or something like that. Yeah,
there's a picture of him in an airport and a tweet from a source which, when you put it into Google Translate, it says he's already agreed a 4-year deal with Celtic, but the source on social media, if you believe such things, has 30 followers. So I don't know if you determine that's bona fide or not, but as I say, so lots of people doing what most people do, the tweets in Spanish, put it into Google Translate, says he's already agreed a 4-year deal with Celtic, and his last known club was Celta Vigo. Yeah, so it's one to watch. He's 6'1", I believe, is that right? Central defender, central defensive midfielder. So he's ticking a box for certain, but again, nobody really knows if that's true or not. So that's the perils of social media, isn't it, Kevin?
Well, again, social media rushes in when there's a vacuum.
Yeah.
And there's an information vacuum. And with Celtic, there will always be an information vacuum. Because there's, for whatever reason, they choose never to communicate or be open with the supporters. And in that situation, all this stuff gathers momentum to fever pitch. What we know is what we knew 7 months ago. We need another central defender. We need another left back. Those are the 2 primary positions, and I'd be I'd be delighted if O'Reilly stays, but I'd say it's 50-50. So that means there's another player that we have to get in because Bernardo can do the business there. But again, a team getting in to play at least 8 games in the Champions League needs these key positions covered. They need a functioning, ready to start, oven-ready 25-man squad. You know, and that 25-man squad in the modern game has to be all first-team starters, if needed be. You know, there's no room for fringe players in the Champions League. Which means, you know, if O'Reilly were to go, I don't think Hatate will go. That's another position that requires some attention to. We can't just say, oh, we've got Bernardo in, that's that. You know, the demands of modern football are much more intense than at any previous time in this game.
Yeah. It's going to be a big one for the club, the whole O'Reilly situation, and we're kind of just waiting. We're still waiting, like we've been waiting the whole window on a team coming in and offering what he's worth. It's no one really knows how O'Reilly's situation is going to play out. Rodgers did say was it after the game on Sunday, Tony? He said that you have been looking at kind of contingency plans and all of that stuff. So the club are clearly targeting a replacement. I don't think O'Reilly's going to leave, and we're not going to sign a replacement. The question would be, what calibre is that replacement if we need one?
Exactly. That's the big question, isn't it? And we get 16 days, 17 days to see who we're bringing in, but also 17 days of worry about Matt O'Reilly leaving and them not bringing in a player that's approaching his ability. You know, what Rodgers did say, he felt he was irreplaceable as well. At this moment in time, you would think Matt O'Reilly was irreplaceable, but he's not. He can find something or somebody who can do the same kind of job. Again, due diligence, but it's about the timing that you'll have to scout that player and recruit them and bring them in, you know, because you've got a foreboding sense of doom about this, haven't you, that they're going to sell him 29th of August and then give it the old, we didn't have enough time to get a replacement. It just frightens me, that worries me, that. But guys,
I've got to say, I've got to say, in tribute to the player, to O'Reilly, unlike some other players previously who have been in this situation, his attitude and his body language has been absolutely first class throughout, you know, the end of last season, throughout the summer, the first few games this season. You don't get any sense that he's been troubled or his mind has been affected by the speculation. He's a young, very talented man who obviously wants to play at the very highest level and knows that he's probably on the brink of something. But unlike other players in that situation, his mentality, attitude and respect for the club and his players and the fans has been absolutely first rate.
He epitomises Celtic on and off the field. You represent your club that you support in the best possible fashion, both on and off the field.
I think he conducts himself very well.
An exemplary professional. And going back to the good person that Brendan Rodgers talks about liking to work with and likes to sign, which is why I was baffled when certain people were questioning Adam Idah's attitude. No, the manager would never bring in anybody who was a bad apple or a disruptive element in the dressing room. And I think Adam Idah, his conduct's been exemplary as well, apart from missing the flight. Okay, fine. But
he apologised, he was quite quick to apologise for that, wasn't he?
He's never made any public comment on the whole Celtic stuff and was available for selection for Norwich whenever they wanted him, and played 20 minutes on Saturday and was actually okay. So I found this whole kind of, he's going to agitate for a move Celtic in 2 years and all that, people, projecting the future, and he'll throw toys out the pram. He did nothing of the sort. I thought he conducted himself very well. The plane incident apart, and took the carpeting for it, did apologise and say sorry. And it was the manager that chose to go public with that, not Adam Idah. That could have been kept in-house, but he never made any comment on it himself. And it's a player who whose dream move was to play for Celtic, and he's sat tight and he's got it. So fair play to him. But in terms of Matt O'Reilly, he's just somebody who will be, fondly remembered by every Celtic supporter at the club for not only what he did on the park, but the way he presented himself off the park. And I still want him to stay. Everybody wants him to stay. But,
yeah.
We're at the mercy of time on that one.
There's a case. I mean, there is a strong case if you're one of his advisors, a family member, himself, because he looks like an intelligent young man. There's a strong case for him to stay.
Yeah.
Which is basically a guaranteed 8 games in the best competition in the world. This is the this is the Paris walkway. This is Paris, London, Milan of the football world. This is where you show your wares, and it was because of a couple of his performances in the Champions League group stages last season that it sparked interest from Atletico Madrid. So you have a few more performances like that, and there's a possibility of a move at Christmas, in January, and certainly the following year. So there is a strong case to sit down with them and say, look, this could be, you will not be, whatever club you move to, it probably won't be a club that can guarantee eight games, unless Atletico were to come in, obviously. But he's selling himself short if you're looking at the likes of Brighton, Bournemouth, Brentford, Everton. Forget these clubs. These are nothing clubs when it comes to Celtic and what they can still offer. So I'm still. That's why I said at the start of the programme, still hoping 50-50 that we'll hang on to him.
Yeah, I mean, Atalanta, who seem to be the ones, they're the ones who have bid, I think, 4 times, possibly 5. Sadly, they are in the Champions League next year because they won the Europa League, so that might be one that appeals to them. But I think you're right, and I sometimes think we're in danger as fans of almost forgetting. We know that Celtic will sell if the price is right, okay? But Celtic hold all the cards here, and it also has to be right for the club, not just financially, but in terms of a replacement. We can't sell Matt O'Reilly with a day of the window to go. The conditions need to be right, and I personally think we should almost have a cut-off for Matt O'Reilly, and it should be at least 3 or 4 days before the end of the window, because it's too late after that.
But again, going back to that transparency that Kevin's talking about, the clubs just come out and say that. Say, look, we've decided the 26th is the cut-off date, the 27th or whatever, because we want to focus on the rest of the season and whatever. And I know clubs can bid right up to the 30th, but I think they should speak to Matt O'Reilly about that too. I don't think he would be perturbed in the slightest, because this guy's just got the best attitude you've ever seen in a footballer, or a modern day footballer, in a long, long time. And he'd be like, okay, fine, I'm fine with that, because as Kevin says, Atalanta today, Atletico Madrid today, it's 8 games in the Champions League. He improves his profile. It's Liverpool tomorrow, isn't it? Pick your club. So and I think Matt O'Reilly is savvy enough to realise that the only way his career trajectory is going is that way. It's not going down. He doesn't have to jump at the first thing that comes along. He's a sensible head, an old head in young shoulders, knows where he wants to take his career, and is with a manager who has improved him, even since Ange, in the short time he's been working with him, and is telling him, Matt, the football world is at your feet here, and it's up to you what you want to do. You can stay or you can leave, but you don't have to leave. He's made a point of saying that as well in the past couple of times. Celtic's a hard club to leave as well. I think Matt O'Reilly's really embraced that and taken that on board. And as I say, you play Matt O'Reilly to that, in terms of pinball, ding, 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 somebody hits that magical figure. You play because you want to play. And until the deal is done and dusted and a medical sorted, then he plays and he will give his all. I'm just amazed that 978 people are watching this live, so thank you so much. That's incredible figures for a morning briefing, so appreciate that, guys, greatly.
Idah is box office, guys. What can I say? Or maybe it's Kevin. Maybe Kevin's the box office one, and that's why so many people are
I'm doffing my cap to Kevin. Indeed,
behave yourself. Behave yourself.
Yeah. Dennis just wondered anything on Darragh O'Shea. He scored last night for Burnley in the Championship. They beat Luton 4-1, and I noticed Darragh O'Shea had scored. He's also asking about Greg Taylor's contract. I think that's something that will be sorted out after the transfer window. It may not be. Greg Taylor may leave at the end of his contract. I would be surprised. I think he'll sign a new deal. I don't see why it would be in anyone's interest for Greg Taylor to leave. I think he's a good player. I think he loves playing at Celtic, but we'll wait and see.
He's another one whose attitude has been first class in the time that he's been here. Absolutely top class. Great professional you have.
Yeah. And gets it tight from certain section of the fan game. You know,
I really like Greg Taylor. I know he's maybe, we all feel we want slightly better at left back, okay, for Europe, etc. But Greg Taylor's been a great player for Celtic. Think of what he's given us, what we've won. He's a real winner as well, which I think's underrated.
He's a terrific start to the season, by the way. The 2 games he's played so far, he's been excellent. So, and anybody that says any different, well, I speak for myself. You can watch what you want, but the Greg Taylor I've watched in the 2 games, the 2 Premiership games so far, has been outstanding. So, again, that's what I'm seeing. But you know, and I use the word. Everybody says, "Oh, we need an upgrade in Taylor," and of course, and I find words like upgrade disparaging. The guy gives his all, and he, and always has done. And despite the constant stream of criticism that comes his way, he's always there to answer the call. You know, can we get better? Possibly, yeah, but you know, and we still want a left back to challenge him, certainly.
Yeah,
because I think somebody coming in to challenge Greg Taylor would raise his game even more, you know, and give the manager that dilemma: do I play the new guy or, you know? So, and I just think it's a no-brainer to give Greg a new contract. I really do. I'd be very surprised if he didn't get offered a new deal.
Agreed.
Yeah. Anything else, guys? Anything you want to get off your chest? Anything historical? I feel like you both of you have always got like dates, like something happened on this date. No, nothing.
we usually keep that for the grand old team pod and bore ourselves rigid with that, you know what I mean? But just wanted to say thank you to everybody that's been tuning into that, Kevin, and saying some kind words about it. Really, really appreciate it. That's a grand old team pod. It goes out at the weekend while myself and Kevin take a kind of stroll down memory lane and pick a subject and go off on various tangents, don't we, Kevin? Till we remember what we were talking about in the first place.
Yeah, we basically show how misspent our youths and childhoods were, while others would do normal things and buy normal books. We were rather abnormally having our noses in Celtic annuals, playing for Celtic. All the books that the players brought out, studying them.
Yeah.
You know, my parents, I think, just thought something not quite right here.
Yes, indeed. But there's no investment like the emotional investment, Hamish, in Celtic Football Club. None whatsoever. You can't put a price on that. Or any of the Celtic supporter.
No matter what one thing I've known about following Celtic over the decades is that there's nothing new under the sun. Whatever we think is happening with the club at the moment, there's been a precedent. There's been a similar pattern of behaviour in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s and 80s that can give a key to the mentality of or what's happening behind the scenes today. Human behaviour and football human behaviour doesn't really change that much.
Yeah.
That's my one and only philosophical observation. You'll be glad to know.
That's your pearl of wisdom. I'm more Norman wisdom. There you go, Hamish.
Stuart Slater. Apparently, we signed Stuart Slater on this day in 1992. Says the evil genius.
There, Stuart Slater. That was
another good player, Hamish, at the wrong time.
I thought he was going to play.
Yeah,
I've actually never heard the name, I don't think, and I'm looking him up now. I looked him up to make sure it wasn't a wind-up comment, and I see, we signed him from West Ham, 92. Yeah. One season he played for us.
Yeah, when Liam Brady was the manager, because Liam Brady, I think, was also his agent at the time.
I'll tell you this, Hamish, when that money, when he was brought in, there was so much hope. This was a proven top English player coming in from a top English club with great scouting reports, with mesmeric ball skills, which we actually saw on occasion. But he was kind of played as a striker, and I think he scored like less than a handful of goals. But there was one magical game against Rangers, and this was in an era when we were getting spanked by Rangers quite often, where he ran them ragged at Parkhead. And it just didn't happen for the boy.
0-0 draw, I think, wasn't it? One of the few goalless draws, wasn't it?
I think it was. I think it might have been the game. For remember, we scored and the referee chose to restart the game while our players were still celebrating.
Oh yeah, that was the 2-1 game. Then it would have been Celtic won 2-1. That's right.
I think that was it.
No, you might be right. Yeah, I remember.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
Right.
But well, he did sign. He did sign Hamish. He is a real person.
Okay. Glad to hear it, and you've furthered my education and my knowledge today of Celtic. So all is good. Right, guys. Thank you for your time. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll return tomorrow. Maybe some more transfer stuff. We might have Adam Idah, the Celtic player, to actually officially talk about, and we can look ahead to the game against Hibs as well on Sunday. So speak to you then.